my university career was horrible. You make friends by getting drunk with them, right? And if you don't do that, then you probably won't make friends. And so I'm finding it harder.
Hard to get drunk with kids.
My wife has resistance in going back to America. There are guns here, like you can get a gun.
Meet Pete, the guy who lived a rock and roll life and really inspiring me. He dropped out of university for the reason to travel to South Africa from his home country, Australia. Later, he decided to live and work in China and then moved to US to work there for a global bank. Was it enough for him? No. He took his wife, they moved to Myanmar, started successful business, and then again, moving again to Lebanon. Today, Pete speaks 5 languages, poorly as he admits, and for the past 6 years he's been living in Thailand, Bangkok, still not speaking Thai. And unsure if he stayed there for another 6 months or for 20 years. In this video, we will speak about Thailand, compare Thailand to Australia, compare people and people behavior in the different countries, and also speak about how expensive it is to grow up kids in Bangkok. Let's go to Bangkok. My name is Igor Trishkin and let's meet Pete.
If you can describe yourself in just 3 words, how you would describe yourself?
Oh, curious and adventurous. Maybe that's the same thing. The negatives, maybe the positives is very analytical, which is maybe connected to curiosity, and excitable.
Excitable. So curious, analytical, and excitable.
Yeah.
So before making some decisions or any decision, you quite analyzing them, I guess.
Oh yeah, you can see me at my analytical thing there going.
And now we end up in Thailand and some countries in between.
Oh yeah, there are some choices I've made in my life that I thought about very hard, and there's some choices I made that I just fell into. So.
Yeah. So maybe now you can tell a bit more about yourself. So where are you coming from? Which country?
Okay.
What is your background? Where you lived before Thailand?
Okay, well I've lived in, I'm not sure, depends on how you define lived, but like worked and studied and...
Let's put it like spend more than...
Not traveled, right?
Spend more than 3-6 months.
Okay, sure, maybe like 8 countries now.
Okay.
I come from a small town in northern Australia called Darwin, and I also lived in southern Australia for my education. And I left Australia maybe, well, I started traveling when I was like 19, which is like over 20 years ago. And then once I started traveling, I couldn't stop traveling. And I really tried to build a life around travel. Like I started living to travel and then travel to live. And then it just sort of kept on continuing, which is strange. So I've lived in, apart from Australia, I've lived in Asia. I've lived in Singapore, Myanmar, and here in Thailand, and also China. I lived in France, the United States, I guess maybe you could say Spain, and Lebanon.
Whoa, okay.
Yeah.
For me personally, Myanmar and Lebanon, it's like kind of highlights on the always list.
Okay.
So what motivated you to leave Australia? Why you didn't stay there? Why you didn't work there? What was your motivation besides like traveling? It's obvious, but what was motivation to leave your country?
I was just really bored. I mean, I love my country. Australia is a great country in so many ways, but there's something about it that just bores me. Australian life, I found very, what's the word? It's not boring. It's not a boring country, but I find that it's not very diverse in people's lifestyles. In Australia, especially, I mean, lucky people like me that grow up and have a good education, come from a good family and stuff, we get a good education, we get a good job, we get a nice house with a big mortgage, and property prices in Australia are so expensive that you just work and you pay off your mortgage and you save up for family vacations once every year or so. That just didn't feel like it was ever going to be enough for me. I really wanted to do something different. I started reading about people, particularly like in the olden days, that just like went out and did adventurous things. Like, I mean, it sounds bad, but like even the colonial people sort of like going out to different countries and setting up and stuff.
Old-fashioned traveling.
Yeah, exactly. and then like I started meeting people in my early years that like lived in Asia and then came to my hometown and met with my father. Or mother for business, and I realized actually, yeah, you didn't have to live in Australia, which was like kind of crazy for me. And then I remember I was in university and in Melbourne, I was sitting in my friend's room and we were looking at a map of the world and we decided we knew nothing about South America. And so we quit university, saved up money for 6 months
Whoa.
and went traveling to South America for 6 months. And then when I was there, I think that's when I got addicted to travel. And I learned about the world of international development, which is like, USAID is like the big donor for this sort of world where you spend money to try to help some countries be less poor. I got really fascinated in that as a problem, like going through South America and seeing the different places where people are living, having experiences with people that are desperately poor. I just got sort of really interested in that as a topic. And then I realized that with my university studies, I could take on an additional major in development studies. And so I did that. And like, otherwise my university career was horrible. Like I had really terrible grades. I wasn't interested. I was super bored. But when I discovered international development as a topic, everything clicked. I did excellently well, like academically, and I just got really passionate about it. And then that was the career where it can take you out of Australia, right? Relatively easily. And so when I graduated, I went and worked for the Australian government in intelligence for the Department of Defence. And then, but even during this time, I was really interested in international relations, international development, and trying to understand why some countries are rich and some are poor. I started studying economics, and then after I did a couple of years for my government, I realized I can do an internship in China with the UNDP. And so I moved to China.
UNDP is what?
United Nations Development Program. So I did an internship with the UNDP. At this point, I was already traveling. Like, actually, I had a girlfriend that I met in South America at the time, and my brother was a pilot. Right?
Perfect combo.
My brother was a pilot, and he didn't have a girlfriend at the time, so he gave the travel privileges of a wife to me. And so I could go to Spain to visit my girlfriend on all the holidays. And then I went to China for a holiday, and I went to Vietnam and all these different places. I just kept on traveling. It was super cheap. I spent like $100 for a round trip fare to Europe or something, which is...
I think as soon as he got a girlfriend or wife, you were a bit disappointed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So eventually I lost that deal because he got a wife. But anyway, long story short, I somehow turned all this travel into a career in international development. And after I went to China, then I went and studied in Singapore. They gave me a scholarship to study economics at a university there. And then they gave me another scholarship to go study in France, the second year of my master's degree. And then as soon as I studied my master's degree in economics, I was in. Like, that's the entryway to the international development world. I was working for the OECD at the time in Paris, and then I went and worked for the World Bank in Washington, D.C. And then it was around about then, I got really bored again, working for the World Bank. And so I moved with my new girlfriend that I met in Paris, now my wife. We moved to Myanmar together to start our first businesses. And so anyway, it just sort of like tumbled into an international life, which was, really fortunate.
How old you were when you first traveled to South Africa, when you moved to China, when you moved to France, and when you moved to USA? So which years of your life it was?
Okay. So the first time I ever really traveled like independently, I was like 19. I went on a backpacking trip to China. And then when I moved to China, I think when I traveled around the world, around South America, I was about 20, 21. South America, not Africa. I haven't spent any time in Africa really. And then that was just backpacking, right? So when I eventually moved, it was probably when I was like 23, 22, 23. To China to do my internship. That was only about 6 months. And then I was kind of out at that point. I went and studied in Singapore, and I haven't really lived in Australia since properly. 1 year. I went and did a strategy consulting job in Melbourne.
And USA, when you moved to USA, DC, Washington?
I would have been like 27, I think. That was after I finished my grad school. Yeah. And then after USA, I went straight to Myanmar. And so And then after Myanmar, I went to Lebanon. After Lebanon, I came here.
Okay, nice. Especially visiting so many countries, how you can compare, like you have your origin country where you made yourself in Australia, and now where you end up at this moment of your life, Thailand. So how you can compare the pace of life in Australia and Thailand? Pace of life, I mean like personal life, maybe also related to business or education, any sphere.
I think it's a tricky question because within a country, you have variance or difference in depending on where you're living, even within a city. You know, there's a style of living in Bangkok where it's high pace, right? There's a style of living in Bangkok which is super slow. Whether or not you have kids, you know, makes things speed up or slow down, I guess, in different ways. How much you take on, you know, as in your work, in your social life, in your whatever lives you want. I think that's the difference. And you can have, I feel like you can have whatever sort of life you want in any country, really. I mean, any country that's big enough, right? I'm not sure you come from Lithuania, maybe living in a small town in Lithuania, there's not much choice. But when you're living in a big city like this, like you can live whatever you want. I think there are some differences, of course. Like for example, you know, I come from a small town in Northern Australia. The pace of life there growing up, I was a child there, so I'm not sure if it's really relevant, but you know, it's a slower pace compared to Melbourne, where I lived after that. Paris, Washington D.C. They're all big cities with which you can have a high-paced life, but there are ways of living there which is slow. So I'm not sure. I mean,
Cool, awesome experience. So it's actually showing what in different ages you can move to the different countries, like very different countries.
yeah, I guess so. I mean, Thailand is a place where we're comfortable now because we got small kids. I wouldn't want to be raising them in Myanmar right now, especially now.
Especially now.
Myanmar is not doing very well. Actually, my wife is American. We don't really want to raise kids in America because we also feel like it's maybe not as safe as an environment as here. And so, I mean, I guess you can sort of like design your life a little bit if you're mobile to be in a place that suits your situation at the time. Whereas when we were younger, my wife and I, we were more open to doing something a bit more adventurous. Right now, we're looking for ease and comfort.
You have additional responsibilities.
Yeah, and Thailand's great for kids because, I mean, it's safe. There's great schools, great hospitals, and yeah, that's all you really need, right? We have a relatively low cost of life. We're blessed by having a nanny, which can be full time, and it's not prohibitively expensive in Thailand.
Can you say, I don't know, is it like publicly available prices for how much it costs here? Because I know, for example, in Singapore, it's quite fixed, something between 800 and 1,200 US dollars in Singapore. Here, same.
Yeah, maybe a little bit less. So yeah, it's a great place to raise kids, I think, honestly. It's and just the idea of living back in Australia right now, like I just can't do it. Like it feels it'd be too depressing going back to like middle class Australian lifestyle compared to here. It's so much excitement, so many things to do. We live really fortunate, privileged lives in so many ways, especially, you know, with the sort of household financial situation we have. It's great. Yeah.
It's like it sounds too positive. We need to mix up it a bit now.
Oh yeah, I mean everything's got.
What you would say, for example, now again, I'm focusing on this point because you spent a big part of your life in Australia, so you really have, and actually already quite a long part here, so 6 years. So yeah. you really have this real experience, not like this temporary foreigner experience who like visiting. So to mix up this super positive picture of Thailand now, what do you think Thailand as a country, I don't know, maybe we can focus on the city, but what Thailand as a country can take from Australia to implement it here, to make it better?
Oh.
Or maybe what you personally missing?
What am I missing about Australia?
Here
Honestly,
in Thailand.
living in Bangkok, I mean, you can see it's a big concrete, cement, glass, steel. I mean, I don't want to be negative like that. is not a beautiful city. There's not a whole lot of nature. I think Australia we're fortunate. It's such a big country. Like, and the cities are quite big, but we have parks, we have green spaces. And
Very good comment.
Thailand doesn't have that as much. We have some. I think Australia's approach to the environment is pretty advanced in its thinking. We could do a lot better, of course. We're, big polluters in terms of greenhouse gases, like we Australians, I mean. But there are some things that just come together there to make conservation of nature and green spaces a lot easier, and the outcomes are better.
But is it changing here in Bangkok? Is it getting better, or it's more or less in the last 6 years it stays the same?
I think it's gotten a little bit better. I think the current governor of Bangkok is quite progressive in his thinking about green spaces and understands the benefits. It was the same in Myanmar, same in Lebanon, like particularly in poorer countries with lesser rule of law. It's easier for rich people to take advantage of a situation and turn what is a nice public space, the commons, the green, nice things that everyone enjoys, to make it theirs and make it about them making money, right? This is a sort of pattern I see everywhere around the world. That doesn't happen so much in Australia. Or other countries like in Europe and America. But the green spaces, particularly when you're raising kids, is what I really crave. And that's what I crave about Australia or America. Like, my wife is American, we go there quite a lot.
Even in America, okay.
No, I crave the green space in America.
Okay, so they also missing it?
No, we miss greenery, like being in forests and natural environments.
But as far, I mean, US is very big, many states and totally different environment. I honestly think I've never been in the US, so I'm planning to be there, but not there. I'm planning my trip to New York in this summer. But again, New York is not the entire US. Same like Bangkok is not a Thailand.
Yeah.
But what I heard from people who are living there, for friends who live there or move there, it's also not like parks are available everywhere. So like in California, if you want to go to a park, or Atlanta, for example, I know quite a lot about Atlanta, Georgia. If you want to go to a park, you need to drive.
Okay.
So it's not something like easy accessible. I don't know how is it in Melbourne, for example, but I know how is it in Taiwan. In Taipei, it's more or less, you exit your house and 20 minutes, even it's like a very stone city, but 20 minutes, more or less any direction, you will find a park or some green area or some like next to the river.
Same with Hong Kong, same with Singapore.
Yeah. So, what was my question? So, in the US, you think like it's same as Australia, means better than in Bangkok?
Yes, for sure. I mean, I lived in Washington, D.C. That's a very green city. Like, there's lots of big green spaces. If you look at New York City, same. But yeah, Brooklyn has Prospect Park. Manhattan has Central Park, right? And just the size of those parks, like in terms of forward thinking, just to reserve that green space, that massive green space in both those boroughs of New York, and I'm sure there are other places in New York that have greenery. It's really impressive, I think.
And vice versa now. So this is something what Thailand or Bangkok, let's put Bangkok, because I think Thai in general doesn't have problems with greenery, because if you're going somewhere to Phuket or Pattaya, it's very green places.
I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not sure what the Thai people think about this sort of question, but just for me personally, I find it difficult to find green spaces. Like,
in Bangkok. I mean, it's obviously.
But yeah, if you want to go outside of Bangkok, sure, you can find, there's jungle all over Southeast Asia, right? But I think you need to drive like a few hours outside of Bangkok.
And vice versa, what Australia can take best to improve, make better Australia from Thailand?
Wow. I think Australia is an interesting country. Like, the attitude of Australian people is sometimes, I'm going to offend Australians probably by saying this, but Australians love rules, right? And maybe this is like the sort of like counterpoint to exactly what I just said in terms of like having rules about environment, right?
But they like rules, but they have green parks.
Yeah.
So there's advantage and disadvantage.
But you're allowed to appreciate rules. You're allowed to abide by rules. I think Australians love rules, and they get really indignant when people break rules. I think the culture in Thailand, the general attitude of Thai people is very they don't anger. They don't get too worked up about things. They don't get too emotionally attached. And maybe this is a Buddhist thing. And I find that Thai people can get angry, but you're far more likely to have an experience with an angry person in Australia than you are in Thailand. I think that's like a general attitudinal thing. In terms of like public policy or what government should be doing, I'm not sure, to be honest. Like Thailand is a very different country to Australia in so many ways.
You say what in Australia it's less possible to meet angry person?
More possible.
More possible.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
This is okay.
I think Australian people can be quite indignant, and they've got a sense of, I don't know. I feel like I don't want to use the word entitlement, but maybe that's the right word. I'm not sure. But Australians, like, I think they have really set expectations about how people should behave, and when those expectations are not met, I feel like they're quick to anger.
And I think Thailand, they're more
things can
relaxed.
get negative really quickly in Australia, and I think it's harder for things to get negative in Thailand, mainly based on the culture and the way that people sort of have, culture essentially.
In general, how I see it, in general in Asia, I traveled already, I think, most of the countries, like, I don't know, Philippines, Vietnam, Bangkok, even Bangkok, Thailand, Singapore, Korea. So in general, like, people in Asia, they're a bit more relaxed. So they have the rules, but they always have very clear and unclear in the same time gray zone where you can, wiggle a bit. And this is also creates this a bit more relaxed pace of work and life comparing to the West or Europe countries.
Yeah, I think the word Asia is, and trying to apply a sort of like assessment of Asia in general, like particularly culturally, it's very difficult because it's so diverse. I mean, if you go to Indonesia versus Japan, like, it's completely different culture. I mean, in terms of being relaxed versus being opposite of relaxed, like, you can find both ends of the spectrum within Asia for sure. Even within like Asia, like, depending on I feel like the diversity is so great. I don't want to say anything about what is Asian culture, but I know what you mean. Like, I think, as I was saying at the beginning, like, Australian culture, I think, is far more homogenous. The ways of life are far more homogenous, and even though we have like diversity in some ways, like, I don't think you have the diversity of lifestyles that you can have even within Asian cities.
Okay, Pete, thank you very much for sharing your life experience in the countries. And then let's speak about how is it to live in Thailand, in Bangkok? How do you feel, how it was for you when you came and maybe now, making friends, building relationship?
I mean, I've been traveling or living abroad for so long, and I went to university in Singapore with a lot of international people. And so when we arrived, I already had friends. And so I've also been through the process quite a few times already by the time I arrived in Thailand. So I'm comfortable with the idea of just arriving somewhere, not knowing many people, and just letting things evolve. I'm an introvert, and so I don't need a big thriving sort of social.
You're an introvert?
Oh, yeah.
And we're doing interview. And thank you very much.
Pardon?
You introvert, you said.
Sure, yeah.
And we're making interview now.
Yeah, it's not a big deal.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm not shy, but anyway, an extrovert gets energy from having other people around them. They need that energy to feel good about themselves. I don't need that. And so coming to a new country and not knowing many people is something that I'm fine with. But I always found that you find a place, you go to a bar, you meet some people. And then particularly in countries or cities with a big sort of what we call expat bubble, where there's like a village really that the expats live in, like the English-speaking village. You can have the French-speaking village or the German-speaking village, the Russian-speaking village. You go to those villages and you meet people, right? And each village has like an event, right? I remember in Myanmar, for example, it was really clear. On Thursday night, when we first arrived in Myanmar, there was not much of a village at all. But on Thursday night, there was drinks at this place. Saturday night was drinks at this place. You go to both, you see the same people every time, and eventually you build your network around that. And these are like the incubators of a social scene, right? These events that you go to. And then once you've been to these incubators for long enough, you form your clique of friends, and then you go off and you do other things, right? And so these are the clique creators, if you know what I mean. And so it's easy to make friends. I think that with kids, it's different. Your whole social world sort of fucking shatters when you have kids, right? You don't really have time to go out drinking, for example. You have to do other things which are more steady. You want to try to make friends with other families with the kids, but the problem is like you're constantly looking after kids at these social events that you don't actually talk to people, and it's hard to form sort of like the bonds. Like in my culture, in Australian culture, particularly, where I come from in Northern Australia, you make friends by getting drunk with them, right? And if you don't do that, then you probably won't make friends. And so I'm finding it harder.
Hard to get drunk with kids.
Yeah, it's irresponsible, really. But anyway, but it's easy enough. Like you find, like my kids' school is just down there, and you meet parents from the school, and then so there's another way of sort of incubating your social scenes around there. The challenge I find, and particularly my wife finds, is that in an expat bubble, people are transient, right? So the friends that you make one year, you might need to make new friends the following year, right? My wife, for example, some of her best friends have left in the last year, and she feels a bit more lonely now. And so constantly building those friends and making attachments with people, and then they leave because of their work or their situation, that's hard. That's the hardest part. Because we made some really good friends, and they're just not part of our lives anymore, even though we try to keep touch and everything. It's just difficult.
But by looking to my friends in Taiwan, I think sometimes what kids even can help making connections, because they have all the same, more or less same age kids, and they're meeting like in the garden, they playing together, and even the kids playing together, they still speaking together. So from one side is switching from drinking party making friends to other friends somewhere in the garden sitting with your kids. Can you share more about how is it raising kids in Thailand? You already mentioned what you were comparing in previous questions, comparing raising kids in Thailand to US or Australia, and what here it's safer. What else you can say to the people who has kids or planning to do kids, and for example, they're moving, again, you very good highlighted, but Asia is very different. You can compare Indonesia to Japan, still Asia. Okay, maybe let's concentrate more.
Lebanon, I mean, Lebanon is still Asia technically. But
technically, yes. So how is it raising the kids in Thailand?
Yeah, I mean, I said before, I wouldn't say that it's safer than Australia to have kids. It's just different. I would say it's safe though. Like I think Australia is a safe place too. My wife has resistance in going back to America because of the guns, which is quite unique to America, right? This prevalence of guns and the fear of having school shootings is such a big mental blocker for us to consider.
Something here, it's not happening here. Something like that?
No, not really. I mean, it's not entirely true, because there was like one shooting maybe a couple of years ago that was in a school. There are guns here, like you can get a gun, but
it's not something like on daily or weekly or monthly news.
Maybe yearly you'll hear about a shooting, right? Whereas in Australia, it's almost non-existent. There was a guy that had a knife, went to a supermarket. Anyway, this is not a big deal necessarily for me, but like when we think about safety, public safety, I don't know people that are getting robbed. I don't know, at least here, I don't know many people that are having sort of like anything really bad happening, right? In terms of things with their kids. And like I said, the quality of the hospitals is quite good, and the quality of the schools are quite good, but very expensive.
But you speak about private schools and private medicine.
If you're an expat, you don't send your kids to a local school.
Why?
Because, well, you could, right? Maybe, but do they speak Thai? I don't know. My kids don't speak Thai.
Does it exist here? Because I know what in Taiwan it exists. I think, hopefully I will not confuse anyone, but in Taiwan there's a public schools which are bilingual, so like English, Chinese,
Right.
and they're still public. So isn't something like that exists here? So you can send your kids not to private school, to public, but this public will be English Thai.
Maybe. Look, I'm Australian. My wife is American. We're raising children who speak English in the household. I don't know anyone, at least in the expat bubble, that are both foreign parents that would send their kids to a local school. And I've never even looked into it. So, I mean, maybe I should, but the quality of the international schools is really high. The cost is really high, like breathtakingly high.
Can you maybe navigate a bit?
Like about $20,000 a kid
for a year?
Per year, per kid.
Is it a total cost? Because I know what in some countries there's a big part, there's an educational cost and then food cost and like $20,000 it's already taking everything, or it's something is coming on top?
There are some things coming on top, but not a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, and there are also cheaper schools and more expensive schools, but you should plan for at least $10,000 to $15,000 a year. The more expensive ones can be $30,000 a year.
Okay.
Like, for example, I think there's one of the better schools is called NIST, and I think that's $1 million Thai baht per kid, and it also depends on the year level that they're at. But that's a big constraint. Like, in terms of our household expenses, our budget, like finding $40,000 per year, like spare cash post tax, is a challenge, right? It really depends on the sort of situation you have, but a lot of people who become an expat, choose the sort of lifestyle we have, eventually move back home because that is just too big a hurdle to overcome. And so if you're planning on moving abroad and having children, it's like, when you're young, you can live in a one-bedroom studio. You don't need a car. You don't need anything. Like, you don't even get yourself health insurance. Like, you can be completely irresponsible. You can live in a shithole, and you can live really cheap, and you can go and do crazy, fantastic things if you're willing to like give up a whole lot of your luxuries, right? But once you have children, you can't do that anymore. And that was certainly describing me. Like, I remember when I was living in Washington, D.C., I was living in someone's attic, right? And I was working for the World Bank. I go out of the attic every day. And like, yeah, you can't have a lifestyle as
almost the Harry Potter story.
It's basically Harry Potter. And in Myanmar, you can have a similar situation. You can get a place for like very little money. Here in Thailand as well. And if you're earning like as a remote worker, like a European or American salary, you can be saving up a whole lot of money if you keep things cheap. But once kids come along, you need more space, you need education, you need proper health insurance, you might want to get a nanny. All these expenses add up to actually be quite a challenge. And if you haven't got like a solid foundation in terms of your household finances, it'll be too much.
Okay.